Hello there, all you amazing people. This is the final and the third month update of my moving over to Apple or Mac OS and whatnot with a Mac Mini, an entry-level Mac Mini with 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gigabytes of SSD storage. So how has my 3 months been? Well, I'm going to angry a lot of people because I'm going to be honest. And people don't like honesty, people just like to be confirmed with what they already believe. So I will say this, I have barely touched Linux at home since I moved to Mac OS. I don't need to do Linux. Actually, I never needed to do Linux in my life, I just wanted to. Why do I not need Linux? Well, Mac OS gives me everything Linux gives me that I need and want. And you may say, well, you can't do X, Y, and Z. True, Linux is better because blah blah blah. You are right. But those things that you value with Linux is not things I value with Linux. If I want to run open source software on a Unix base or a Unix-like base, Mac OS do that for me. The Mac OS system gives me enough of Unix or Linux, in quotes again here, as I need. I don't need to customize the desktop. I don't really have a desire to do it, to be honest. I mostly just did it because I could. I don't need to see the source code for the kernel because I'm not going to code for the kernel. I just want a kernel that actually is stable and work. When I look at what I used Linux for or use Linux for, is for a platform, delivery platform for open source software. With Homebrew and all kind of other systems on the Mac OS, I can get 99 or 90%, depending on who you ask, of the same open source software that is running under Linux. And when I am looking at source code, when I am messing with source code, it's not Linux source code, it's the programs that runs on Linux that needs fixing, that needs configuration, etc, etc, etc. I rarely configure Linux in a config file. I used to do that in the early days of Linux, spend hours and hours setting up access to drives and hardware and stuff like that in the good old configuration files. I barely do that, if at all, anymore. On Linux, I just use the GUI tools. So Mac OS has more or less killed my desire to run Linux. I do it when needed. Linux for me is a tool, just like Windows and Mac OS is a tool. I am not so delusional that I'm like, this is my life. You know, this is what is going to save humanity, because no software is going to save humanity. People are going to save humanity. If you can't afford a Mac, if you think it's overpriced, I will 1,000,000 times agree with you. The RAM upgrade prices, the hard drive upgrade prices is stupidly expensive. To the degree that you would call it fucking anti-consumer. They should be fucking put into fucking court about it, if you ask me. But I can afford it, okay? For me, it's not an issue. I don't mind wasting money on this hobby. So what I want to say to all of you people out there that feel strongly about what I'm saying right now, just be glad I'm not wasting your money. And as long as I'm not wasting your money, just don't give a fuck about what I do with my money. You didn't work for my money, I worked for my money. Just don't tell me what to do with my money. If I want to waste them all on Plo and hookers, let me do that, okay? Now I'm really going to angry a lot of people, not only the Linux people, but the rest of the IT world, or the clever people of the IT world. I have an 8 gig of RAM system, 8 GB of RAM system. You probably right now expect me to sit and say that it's the worst decision I've ever made, and I have so massive issues with it, and my system is barely unusable and blah 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 blah. I'm recording this video right now on an 8 gig Mac system. I have 4 Chrome browser, 1 Safari browser open, and I probably in all have about 100 to 150 to 200 tabs open in all of them. That's like typically for me. I have Discord open and blah 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 blah. I have Steam open, I have a lot of shit open. I don't I don't lick my computer. I don't look at the memory use, I look at the memory pressure. Right now I'm sitting at 63% memory pressure. That is kind of Mac OS's way of determining how much workload there is on the RAM. The higher workload, the more they get stressed, and the higher up in the workload you are, there's a high chance that you need more RAM. I edit all my videos on this system. I've been using DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut Pro, and all of those tools. I barely, if at all, see memory pressure go up to 70%. I have seen it in really few cases hovering. I think the max I've ever been at is 75%. So that means that the RAM is starting to work really hard to keep up with my system. Does it page a lot to the hard drive via the page file? Yeah. Does it matter? No. What do I mean by that? Because you will say now, oh well, you know, your hard drive or your SSD has a certain amount of lifespan, and you will be correct. You will be 1000% correct. But here is the thing. You have to ask yourself a question now. With that knowledge, that you know that there's going to be a lot of read-write to the hard drive, do you suspect that the hard drive will fail before you upgrade? And this is an important question that 99% of amazingly smart people don't ask on the internet. They don't think about obsolescence or replacement upgrading path. They love to waste money on things that they then upgrade before it has run out its usefulness, to then get the next big better thing to fill out the benchmarking bars and to get the brownie points and the EPEAN points when they don't need it. My upgrade path on computers is typically 3 to 4 years, or 2 to 4 years. That means that according to the calculations of the world, if I don't have a bad SSD in my Mac Mini, I should get, with average computer use, or at least the computer use that I'm doing where I'm not, you know, transferring files 24/7, the SSD should last at least 4 years. Like, it should probably last about 10-ish years. So that means that if I'm updating in 2 or 4 years, which I want to, 8 gigabytes is enough. Because 8 to 2 years, yeah, we probably need 16 gigabytes in like 2 or 3, 4 years. Before, you know, as a minimum, sorry. And my SSD is not going to, again, there will always be edge cases, but the common research knowledge say that it should being able to handle the RAM read and write things for at least the 4 years that I maximum will keep the system. So it makes no sense to spend $800, $300 for a system if I'm upgrading in 2 years, because I'm not getting those money back. I'm getting some of it back, but I will still be losing money. You get what I'm coming at here? And the money that I save today, I can use on dongles, games, and other things. And that, again, that's why a lot of people, they don't understand upgrade path in computers, because it only makes sense to buy something that lasts you for many years if you are not relying or don't want new technologies, new protocols, etc, 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 which most of you want. I have a baseline M2. Or do I wish I bought a M2 Pro? Kinda. Not because of the 16 gigabyte or the hard drive, because of the cores, the GPU cores and the CPU cores. It of course would have helped me, or will help me, rendering videos and in some gaming aspects. Yes, I do game on my Mac Mini. I have a video about games that I play on my Mac Mini. It's not the latest and greatest Cyberpunks and, you know, Starfield, but I do play small little casual games with if I just need like 30 minutes of a break. It's mind-boggling, borderline crazy with what you can get away with and save a shit ton of money instead of running out and believing all the bullshit the nerds are telling you on the internet that you need. Because you really don't need it. Most nerds, they just tell you what they want or what they wish they had, because they have these like edge case scenarios where if you're compiling the weight of the world every day, you need this like 10,000 gigabyte, 250 thread computer, which, yeah, you need, but most people don't do that. Most people that are watching this video right now could live with an 8 gig system, at least this year, next year, and maybe the year after that, for the most part. So this whole debacle that I've got myself into over and over again by saying that 8 gig is enough for a lot of people, I do believe in that. But I also know and understand that some people don't need that. I do know and understand that some developers can use that. What this journey into macOS and Apple have shown me is that, I'm sorry to say, but most of the advice you get on the internet is bullshit. Just being plainly honest here, people. What will you call it? A slave to the marketing. Because if you go look at how, you know, hardware companies are selling stuff to you, they are like showing you bars about how great this new product is without actually telling you what that bar means in real life. X amount of points faster, 10% faster, 20% faster. Yeah, in 1 or 2 scenarios, not in everything. Then you go watch the YouTubers. And most of them are just throwing bars up there again. So many more points than the other one. And then they're showing you a few games that gives you like 5 or 10 more frames per second. And you're paying 2 times the price of the graphic card that the old one will cost. Or the hardware, the CPU and stuff like that. So you've been conditioned that you need to fill the bars. You need the bigger bar. What I have learned is that, yeah, if you're rendering 24/7, if you're compiling 24/7, if your computer's doing a single task or a few tasks all the time and you make money depending on when that task is done. So that means that while your computer's doing something, you don't make money. And if you're doing that enough, like your computer's locked up enough, waiting to complete a task so you can then make more money, it makes sense to get a faster system. If it takes 1 minute or 1 minute and 30 seconds to complete a task, will not matter whatsoever. If it takes 1 minute or 2 minutes, if it takes 10 minutes or 15 minutes, it won't matter. You know why? This is something that I learned doing IT work. IT people, and it's developers, administrators, managers, they don't just do one thing. There's a lot of fucking things you need to do when you're at work. So while your system is compiling, rendering, whatever the fuck it does, take a 5-minute break. Work on an email you need to answer. Work on another project for 2 or 3 minutes. Go talk to, accounting that's been yelling at you for buying too many fucking Pokemon cards this month. I cannot explain how many times I've seen people in the IT industry, when their computer was like too slow for them, use that as an advantage to do other stuff. This has been the most eye-opening experience in my life. I went from a 12-core Ryzen 5 Windows machine with 32 gigabytes of 6000 megahertz RAM, and I think I have like 5 or 6 terabytes NVMe's in it, down to a 8-core, 10-core GPU, 8 gigs of memory, 256 gigabytes of SSD storage. Basically the one you see over here, this one here. And this one here, it's rendering videos at the same speed as my Ryzen 5, sometimes a little bit faster. I have the same shit open as my Windows machine. I have not yet, right now I'm sitting at 150 gigabyte free space left, because I have an external SSD for all the junk that I'm installing. The games and the downloads and the videos and all that fucking shit. I have never had a memory warning whatsoever. Could I force the system into giving me one? Yes. But there's a difference between forcing it to give you a memory warning and then just use the system as you normally would and see what happens. And that's what I did. The first month I was so afraid of pushing my system because everyone on the internet told me that, 16 gigabytes of RAM, if you're under that, your computer will log up and you can't do anything. I was so conservative with what I did with my computer because you all have scared the living shit out of me. This system here right now is rivaling a 12-core, 32 gig system in anything besides gaming. See you all later. Bye-bye.